Okay, in the previous video we saw that we had to use two cables if you want to use a router attached to two VLANs. So we had these two VLANs and a server that is part of VLAN 1 and these two VLANs part of VLAN 2. So we had configured a router to be connected to these two VLANs. So these machines forward to 10.1, and the router, if they want to communicate with this VLAN, they forward to the router, and the router then forwards through this cable to this VLAN, and vice versa. Now, instead of attaching two cables, one for each VLAN in this case, we could use a trunk model where we could really have multiple VLANs connected to a switch, and we could route all of them to a router through a trunk cable, and just use one cable. Okay, and we will create sub interfaces, as we will see. So this model is called router in a stick model. Okay, so I'm going to have a switch. Let me go with the 2960 switch. Okay. And I'm going to put 3 PCs, one in each VLAN. So they're going to be on their own VLAN. So I'm going to label them as 192.168.1.10. This is 192.168.2.10, and let's say this is 192.168.3.10, right? And we're going to connect them using a straight through cable. Let me use this interface 0/2 for this. I'll use 0/1 to connect to the router. So I'll use the 0/2 port, and then 0/3 for this, and then 0/4 for this, right? So let me configure these switches, the switch. Let me create the two VLANs. So I'll call it as VLAN 2. Let me create the third VLAN. So I'll go to this interface is by default VLAN 1. This VLAN port 3 is going to be in VLAN 2. Port 4 is going to be in VLAN 3, right? And let me now put my router here. And I'm going to connect a switch and router, so I need a straight through cable. So I'll put it on the 0/1 port, connect to the router. I'll put it on the 0/0 port for the router. Now let me go to the switch and 0/1 port. Let me now make it as a trunk port, and we want to basically include these 3 VLANs, but we don't need to include the other VLANs that are out there. So I could just unselect all of them, and it will be, say, from 1 to 1001, which includes the 3 VLANs 1, 2 and 3. So I'm done with this part, but the key thing is to configure the router now. So I'm going to connect to the router. So enter no, enable, take it in the execution mode, the root mode, and then config T to configure the terminal. Now we'll get into the interface that we just used, FA 0/0, right? We will create 3 sub interfaces, one for each of these VLANs. So I'll say interface FA 0/0 0.1. Okay, and I have to, before assigning the IP address, we have to say encapsulation dot 1 q, right? So when I press the tab, I get the whole thing, and then we want to put the VLAN number. So this is kind of the thing. So encapsulation dot 1 q takes care of trunking on these sub interfaces. Okay, so now let's assign the IP address. So I'll assign the IP address 192.168.1.1. so this is for the 1.0 prefix, right? And then the subnet mask is going to be 255.255.255.0. and let me exit out of this sub interface and get into interface FA0/0.2. then I'll run again encapsulation dot 1q dot 1q 2, that's the VLAN. Then let me assign the IP address 192.168.2.1, and we get into interface 0/0.3 and encapsulation dot 1q 3 IP address 192.168.3.1. okay, and so exit. Now actually we need to turn on each of the sub interfaces, so let me turn on this first. I forgot to turn on the other two sub interfaces. Say no shutdown for this sub interface, and you can even go from one sub interface to the other directly. You don't need to exit out and do. So you can say 0/0.2, that takes you to that sub interface, and you can turn it on, and then 0/0.1, then you can run the no shutdown command there. So now let me exit out of this, and we'll go back to, you'll see that this is still turned red, because even though we turned on the three sub interfaces, we need to turn on the main interface, which is our FA0/0, and we'll say no shutdown for that, and nothing else is needed. So once only you turn on the main interface, all the sub interfaces will turn on. Okay, so now they are green, and we'll exit out of this, and now if you run show run to see the configuration, you will see that 0/0 the 0/0 interface as it is doesn't have any IP address, but we have three sub interfaces, 0/0.1, .2, .3, taking care of the trunking, and this is the gateway address for each of those sub interfaces. Okay, so that should take care of that. So now I can configure my PCs. I have not done that yet, so let me do that. So 192.168.1.10 as its IP address, and the gateway is going to be 1.1. So this is going to be 192.168.2.10, 192.168.2.1, and this is going to be 192.168.3.10, 192.168.3.1. So now I can really ping to any machine. So let me ping to 3.10. It may take a while. The first request may time out, so second request gets a reply. So let me run again. We'll get a reply for all of them. Right, so let's try the other VLAN. Okay, right, so it works. So this is called the router in a stick model, okay, because you have one router which basically serving this multiple VLANs. All right.